What's happening in the world? What has happened in the world? What's going to happen in the world? Well, let's investigate and see if we can find out. It sure seems strange. Anyways, Rick Miracle, let's talk about a book, Common Sense, by Thomas Paine. Please watch. Good day. It's Rick Miracle here. I'd like to take this opportunity today, Thursday, October 10th, 2013, to talk about a small pamphlet and a man. Common Sense. Written in 1776 by Thomas Paine. I'll read his simple bio on the back. Among the most influential authors and reformers of his age, Thomas Paine, 1737 to 1809, was born in England but went on to play an important role in both America and the French Revolutions. In 1774, he immigrated to America, where for a time he helped edit the Pennsylvania magazine. On January 10, 1776, he published the pamphlet Common Sense, a persuasive argument for the colonies' political and economic separation from Britain. Common Sense cites the evils of monarchy, accuses the British government of inflicting economic, social injustices upon the colonies, and points to the absurdity of an island attempting to rule a continent. Credited by George Washington as having changed the minds of many of his countrymen, the document sold over 500,000 copies within a few months. This was in 1776. And I don't have to explain to most Americans that since the inception of the United States of America, the few colonies they started out with, and then expanded to California and Texas, that this country has grown into a great country. But regrettably, it seems all that is about to slip away for a couple reasons. One, in 1913, I think it was, it seems Britain got her colonies back. Britain took over the United States of America. And you ask, how did they do that? Well, a couple days before Christmas, Senator Hyde and a lot of other insiders, Masonic Freemason types, the secret society of the Illuminati, headed by the Rothschild family, headquartered out of London, Britain. Anyways, in 1913, a couple days before Christmas, they met on Jekyll Island. Senator Hyde and a bunch of accomplices. And they put together a bill, and the president at the time they had in their pocket. And the bill created the Federal Reserve. It created a bank that made the United States of America's money, loaned America money. And the bank was owned by the bank in England, by the family in England, in London, the Rothschilds, the Illuminati, and many accomplices. That day, that holiday weekend, that bill, which was signed by the president they had in their pocket, they took over the United States. The United States was no longer
being operated, controlled, or run by us, the people, or our elected officials. It was run by the banksters. The same problem we have today, and it's getting worse. Anyways, these banksters who started the Federal Reserve, the depression that followed, they started that. And then you might ask, Rick, why would they start a depression? Why would they do that? It's simple. They drive all the businesses and property owners into despair. They break them. The depression, the recession. There was no money anymore. People weren't able to buy things. So the companies were sinking like a rock. And lo and behold, here comes Mr. Morgan and Mr. Rockefeller and other Illuminati members and Freemasonry members, all in cahoots with the bank in England, the money people who had taken over our government through the Federal Reserve. They bought up everything. They bought up lots of things, pennies on the dollar. And so they controlled our prosperity. And whenever we weren't behaving, like now, and I'll explain that, they could drive our economy into the ground again. And why aren't we behaving now? Well, most people are aware of the Middle East wars and overthrows since 9/11. And if you look at a map, you'll see that Israel is right in the center. And there are forces called Zionism, Zionist. Mount Zion is near Jerusalem and Tel Aviv. And the future plans are to have the world run from this area. Hence they call it Zionism. Well, Zionism was also created by the same people on Jekyll Island, days before Christmas. Created Zionism, the Rothschilds, and the other Illuminati members. And there are many books about this, many videos on YouTube. People are starting to wake up. Therein lies the problem, why America now is being punished. America now is being punished because it's waking up. We can't have intelligent, competent, financially capable people to have the freedom and time to think and the power to do something to upset the plans of the New World Order. The banksters based out of London. And there's 3 cities, this is interesting. Washington, D.C., and there's a separate city in London, and the Vatican. Those are 3 cities that are sovereign territories in 3 different countries. Those cities are countries unto their own, and all 3 of them are united. They're in cahoots. This is your Illuminati. The word just sounds like an alien concept. But in the textbooks, in the Vatican material, in the history books, the Illuminati has been around a long time. It's common knowledge. It's an old word. It's an old group. There's all kinds of symbolism on the internet, all kinds of photos. If you put photos and Illuminati in the search engine, you're going to find a Yahoo site of photos, and you're going to see how ancient it is. There's nothing new. So anyways, I thought I would take a little time and read a little bit from Thomas Paine's book, 1776. I highlighted some stuff earlier. The cause of America is in a great measure the cause of all mankind. If we let them take over our country now, in other words, this great country, this United States of America, if the small island over there in the UK, England, is going to rule us, and even then smaller, a small little city in London is going to rule us, the Rothschilds, the Rockefellers, the Morgans, the Illuminati, the Zionists, the Freemasons, and a lot of other people in cahoots with these people. The cause of America is in a great measure the cause of all mankind. If we sink like a rock, the world's going to sink like a rock. Freedom will be a word no longer remembered. The laying a country desolate with fire and sword, declaring war against the natural rights of all mankind, and the extirpating defenders thereof from the face of the earth, is the concern of every man to whom nature hath given the power of feeling. The laying of a country desolate with fire and sword. That should concern everybody. That's what's happening right now. People go about their business, watch football, watch TV shows, Ellen on TV, all kinds of things. And people are being killed in Syria, Libya. This is part of the New World Order, the new headquarters for the New World Order. Instead of Wall Street and New York City and London, the new headquarters is supposed to be Jerusalem and Tel Aviv. The financial power will probably be in Tel Aviv, and the military might and decision-making will be in Jerusalem, where they're building it's in the news, they're working on rebuilding King Solomon's temple. That should concern everybody. There's two laws, systems of laws. There's God's laws, and there's man's laws. And when we do not follow God's laws, we're stuck with man's laws. And trust me, you don't want to be there. History has shown us that. Okay, so on the book here. Society in every state is a blessing, but government, even in its best state, is but a necessary evil. Thomas Paine, 1776. Part of the group of people who helped found this country. In its worst state, that's where we are now, an intolerable one, intolerable evil. For when we suffer, or are exposed to the same miseries by a government, which we might expect in a country without government, our calamity is heightened by reflecting that which we furnish the means by which we suffer. Our calamity is heightened. In other words, it's worse because we furnish the means by which we suffer. We're paying taxes. The government's buying bullets. We're paying taxes. The government's delivering, check this on the internet, huge military tank-like vehicles to the police departments in Austin and in many cities everywhere. I don't know, something like 17,000 and all kinds of crazy equipment. And we're paying for it. Our own persecution, the tyranny, the tyrants, the tyranny that's going to come down on us if we allow it. We paid for it. Our calamity is heightened by that knowledge, you think? And pardon my reading if I'm a little poor at it. I'm not a professional at this. I'm just a concerned citizen. All right, moving on. But as the colony increases, the public's concern will increase. So as we get bigger, our citizens should be a little more aware, because if we're not, we're going to get what we got now, and a runaway government. This will point out the convenience of their consenting to leave legislative part to be managed by a select number chosen from the whole body, who are supposed to have the same concerns at stake which those who have appointed them. Our elected leaders are supposed to have our concerns as their concerns. And I think anybody knows right now that that's the furthest thing from the truth. What did Obama say? You can read the health care bill after you sign it. What's in it? You don't want to know. All right, to move on here. That the elected might never form to themselves an interest separate from the electors. That the elected might never form to themselves an interest separate from the electors. Saying here that if we don't pay attention, the people we elected will create their own interest. And we already know they have. The banksters, the globalists, people. You should go to the cities I've been to in the last 2 years. The homelessness, the despair, the people sitting on steps and looking like they're lost and tattooed from head to toe, looking like no dental care, no health care, nothing. It's somebody has abandoned the USA ship, in my opinion. Their fidelity to the public will be secured by the prudent reflection of not making a rod for themselves. So in other words, their responsibilities they'll pay attention to if we watch them and don't allow them to make a situation where they're working for their own aims. And as we all know, the elected officials are largely elected by what was in the news the other day, the stakeholders. You would think the citizens of the United States would be the stakeholders. But see, we're so broke, we don't contribute to the political parties and the ones who get elected. And the wealthy corporations and the wealthy individuals and foreign individuals are all in cahoots that put people they want in office to serve their needs. So now, instead of the citizens of the United States being the stakeholders, these Illuminati, Freemason, power mongers, war mongers, with other goals, world domination, right out of a sci-fi movie. Those are the stakeholders our elected officials are serving. Remember in 1913, when the days before Christmas, they took over our system. They took over the banking system. That's when we lost our country. Everything since then, World War II, World War I, all these things have been contrivances, situations created to serve these new masters. And there's too many books, and if you watch my videos, I'll be doing these books. It's just way too many. And I know you can lose me, but if you read one book at a time, and you watch one of my videos at a time, it should make sense. Thomas says, the more simple anything is, the less liable it is to be disordered, and the easier repaired when disordered. Well, I don't have to tell anybody. Our governmental system right now is anything but simple. It's gone over the top. It's insane. Absolute governments, to the disgrace of human nature, have the disadvantage with them that they are simple. If the people suffer, they know the head from where their suffering springs. But the people today aren't even paying attention. Even the more they suffer, they still don't pay attention. The Constitution of England is so exceedingly complex that the nation may suffer for years together without being able to discover in which part the fault lies. Some will say in one, and some in another. And every political physician will advise a different medicine. So England at the time in 1776, the laws were so complicated, nobody knew who to blame for anything. That's happened here in the United States. Sadly, the political action committees which are mostly Zionist Jewish, using our country, our military, our young people, to secure this new property over there in the Middle East, to secure as the new focal point to rule the world. They're using the USA to fight these battles. And the USA's money. That's the funny part. They're borrowing money from the Federal Reserve to finance our armies and our companies for materials, planes and tanks and bombs. The United States is borrowing the money from these guys, which we have to owe these guys back, for them to subdue us and take us over and build this new place and kill all the people there. I mean, they killed 100,000 people so far in Syria, and displaced 2 million have been evicted from Syria. And they're in surrounding countries like Libya and Egypt. So this is an obvious plan. And they're demolished. You can see pictures of Syria, the cities, before and after if you go on the internet. And they're beautiful, nice little cities, and now they're all bombed and wrecks. It's just sad. And the United States is having to borrow from this Bank of England, the Rothschilds, to fight this war for them. And now we owe them the money, and we're going into default for the money we owe them to fight their battle, to take over us. Odd, huh? All right, let's see what else Thomas has to say. The English Constitution, we shall find them to be the base remains of two ancient tyrannies. So, as we know, England has a queen. First, the remains of a monarchical tyranny in the person of the king. So the king's son takes over, then his son takes over, and then his son takes over. Secondly, the remains of an aristocratical, sorry about my language, tyranny in the person of the peers. In the United States, we have an aristocratical tyranny situation. Prescott Bush was one of the original Bushes after World War II, who was the CIA or security advisor to a president, and his son George Bush became a president. His son George Bush became a president. Jeb Bush was the governor of Florida. Jeb Bush is on TV testing the waters all the time, wanting to be president. And if you look at a lot of our politicians, it's starting to become a aristocratical tyranny. And they're making laws now, and they're making a huge divide between us, average citizens. We're getting poorer. And these people are getting filthy richer. And they don't serve us as stakeholders, they serve the banksters and the new order of things. Anyways, moving on. They contribute nothing towards the freedom of the state. This whole system is not working for our benefit. This new health care bill you're going to have to pay, what, $300-400 a month, mandatory, and the fine, what, $500, $5,000, nobody knows. And if you don't have a job and you don't have money, which, what, half of America is unemployed right now, you get fined, you get declared, I guess, sort of a criminal. Will they make a law that everybody is rounded up and winds up in work farms and prisons, or worse, death? Will they make laws that you're not needed, so you're past, let's say, 60, you die? To say that the Constitution of England is a union of three powers of reciprocity, checking each other, is farce. Either the words have no meaning, or they're a flat contradiction. Well, we know right now that our Supreme Court, our Senate, our House of Representatives, the presidency, they're all in cahoots. I mean, you can't tell the difference between what Obama's doing and what George Bush did. And you can't, John McCain's a Republican. He's siding with Kerry, warmongering. There's no division anymore. And the political parties put the people in the Supreme Court who are ruling against the people. They said even foreign corporations can donate money to political party elections in the United States. That's because the United Nations will be the focus point of their laws, of treaties, like the United Nations right now is trying to get a treaty signed with the United States to remove everybody's guns. The U.S. is no longer going to be the U.S. It'll be a territory assigned to one of these monarchies, the aristocracy, these families. I wouldn't be a bit surprised if they just actually went back to the name and started calling these guys kings and queens. That the king is not to be trusted without being looked after, or in other words, for thirst of absolute power, is the natural disease of monarchy. Well, you give them a little power, looks like they're taking it all. I live in a condominium and we have a 7-people association group, and they act like they're presidents and kings and queens of the world for small little offenses in a condominium complex. I guess a little power does go to the people's heads. Male and female are the distinctions of nature. Good and bad are the distinctions of heaven. But how a race of men came into the world so exalted, above the rest, and distinguished like some new species. These are these Zionists, Illuminati, Freemasons, rich people who are now the stakeholders and not you and me, is worth inquiring into. You think? Thomas Paine was pretty smart. This is 1776, remember. Whether they are the means of happiness or the misery to mankind. Well, the misery index is going way up. Antiquity favors the same remark for the quiet, the rural lives of the first patriots hath a happy something in them. Let's try to see if I can understand that. Which vanishes away when we come to the history of Jewish royalty. Interestingly enough, since Jesus, well, before that, but since Jesus, and the certain factions of Jewish people who practice occultic magic, Satanism, have wormed their way into the castles of Germany and France and England with the aristocratic royalty, the kings and queens, the families. The two groups have intermarried completely. Their headquarters was in Venice during the Crusades 1000 to 1300, and we had 8 crusades over to Jerusalem and a whole Mideast area in Syria, Libya, Bosnia. The whole wars countries we're in now, Egypt, Saudi Arabia, from 1000 to 1300, 300 years, they had 8 crusades. Millions and millions of people were slaughtered on both sides repeatedly. And the way they did it was horrible. When they're Christians, they're sent by the Pope from the kings of England and the kings of Germany and France and Spain and Italy, went into a city, Jerusalem, or whatever city over there on the coast in Palestine. That was the name back then. The poor people, or the Arabs, would swallow a gold coin, if they had any, so that the invaders couldn't get it. So when they took over a city, they took a knife and they gutted everybody, spilled their guts, to see if there was any gold coin. And then after 30, 40 years, let's say the Crusade number 1, the Arabs would rise up, and then they would, like a big mob or a herd or horde or whatever you want to call it, would swarm over the Middle East and retake all of their cities and murder everybody except for the elite again. They always wound up on the ship and made the kings and queens and royalty. They left all the pilgrims and citizens behind, but they were all mass murdered. Quite gruesome. And then Pope would get another crusade going, and the crusades usually started because the Vatican or the kingdoms were having poverty issues, and it was a big money-making thing, war was. So they would get crusade number 2. And again, they would ships and armies marching, and along the way they laid waste to cities going through Turkey and Bosnia and all those places. That's how they fed themselves. They destroyed all the way there in the name of Jesus. So I guess they weren't really good Christians. And again, they gutted everybody, spilled the guts on the ground, and looked for any coins, and took all the gold and the castles and sent it back to the Vatican and the kingdoms, and big money-making enterprise. And then again, 10, 20 years later, the Arabs would rise up and slaughter everybody again, 8 times in 300 years. Imagine the insanity of this. Since 9/11, what have we been doing? 100,000 just in Syria. I don't even want a million in Iraq, what, a million in Afghanistan, who knows, have been killed, and everybody displaced. Somebody's evicting all the population from the size of a territory the size of the United States. It's all intentional. They're mass murdering a whole population of Arabs. I guess maybe for the new Zionist nation of Israel and all the cohorts that are going to rule the world. And the United States is going to be like a slave state. It's coming. All right, so here we go. Government by kings was first introduced into the world by the heathens, from whom the children of Israel copied the custom. So the heathens had kings, and then Israel, when they came into their own, they wanted to have kings. It was the most prosperous invention the devil ever set on foot for the promotion of idolatry. In other words, they worship an idol. A guy called Moloch. And what's interesting about that is if you look at Alex Jones in the Bohemian Grove in California, there's photographs of President Nixon, Bush, Reagan, all kinds of CEOs, and Kissinger. In other words, these Illuminati, Freemasonry types that rule the world, they have big cremation of care ceremonies every year and big get-togethers. It's where they got together and came up with the idea for the nuclear bomb. Anyways, they have a big owl called Moloch, and the cow is called Moloch. You'll see this if you go Moloch. And photos on the internet, on Yahoo Pictures, you'll see all these pictures. And they throw a child into the burning fire as sacrifice. That's idolatry. It's basically Satan. The heathens paid divine honors to their deceased kings, and the Christian world hath improved on the plan by doing the same to their living ones. You got a lot of people who say they're Christians, but they're not. A lot of people who say they're Jewish people, and they've turned to the other side, Satanism. And a lot of Jewish people are good. A lot of good Jewish people have died. A lot of good Jewish people are picketing and writing books. And Henry Macau, that first book I did the video on. There's a lot of people out there. So you can't be really anti-Semitic because there's bad Jews and good Jews, and then, like a lot of American citizens, I don't care Jews who just don't even care if they're Jewish, they just want to live their lives. And the same thing with Christians. It's good Christians, and evil Christians that are part of the Illuminati and the Freemason Society, murderers and thieves. And then there's, of course, a whole lot of I don't care Christians who, it's where they grew up and they believe in God, but they just want to go to a football game and lead their lives and not pay attention to this politics. It's getting us nowhere. It's getting us in trouble by our ignorance and our apathy. For the will of the Almighty, as declared by Gideon and the prophet Samuel, expressly disapproves the government by kings. That's in the Bible. Kings they had none, and it was held sinful to acknowledge any being under the title but the Lord of hosts, God. That the Almighty, ever jealous of his honor, the Almighty created us, gave us all we have, and we discard him and we go for the king, and then those rich elites dump the people it all gets uglier and eviler. All for Satan. Even the Almighty, ever jealous of his honor, should disapprove of a form of government which so impudently invades the prerogative of heaven. So these man-made laws are superseding God's laws. And God's laws are the Ten Commandments. It's called common law. And we already know they're breaking them all. Thou shalt not kill, number 6. Thou shalt not commit adultery, number 7. Thou shalt not steal, number 8. Thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's property, whatever. 9, is that 9? And thou shalt not bear false witness. Or maybe I got those two backwards. All this stuff is going on. They're breaking them. Man's laws are breaking the Ten Commandments. Here was temptation in its fullest extent. Not a kingdom only, but a hierarchy one. Like I said, George Bush Sr., George Bush, all these families are now ruling the world. Their families are going to rule the world. Everybody else there's these opportunities they tell you that are there for you are false. But Gideon, in the priority of his soul, replied, I will not rule over you, neither shall my son rule over you. The Lord shall rule over you. The Jewish people wanted Gideon to be their king, and he went and prayed to God, and he came back and said, no, I'm not taking you up on that offer. Bad idea. The hankering which the Jews had for the idolatrous customs of the heathen is something exceedingly unaccountable. Give us a king to judge us. And Samuel prayed unto the Lord. And the Lord said unto Samuel, Hearken unto the voice of the people, and all that they say unto thee. For they have rejected thee, have not rejected thee, but they have rejected me. So they wanted Samuel to be their king, and Samuel's going to God saying, whoa. God says, I'm the guy. I'm ad-libbing here. Hope you enjoy that. That I should not reign over them. So the Jews rejected God so that he did not reign over them. Wherewith they have forsaken me and served other gods. When you do that, there's a whole long speech here about all the bad things they did. And the Lord will not hear you in that day. So after they did all that bad stuff, he's turning a deaf ear. So anybody who wants to have the Lord help them and save them, ask the Lord and obey the Lord. It's pretty simple. No stealing, no killing, no adultery, no coveting, no false witnessing. How hard is that? Sounds pretty good to me. Anyways, for all men being originally equals, no one by birth could have a right to set up his own family in perpetual preference to others forever. That's God's law. These people that are the elites, they can't set up a thing where their children and their children's children always rule over you. That's God says no. But again, anyways, we chose you for our head. They could not, without manifest injustice to their children, say, that your children and your children's children shall reign over ours forever. So people were electing themselves a king. The people. Chose somebody. But they didn't realize it was forever. And then that king's kids and their children. And it could be a good thing, I guess, if you always had good kings. But as we know in history, there have been some really crazy, insane men who became kings and slaughtered their own people. Life became a complete misery. And our presidents lately have been complete under the control of the puppet master, the Illuminati. Reagan, Bush's, Clinton, Obama, Nixon, all of it, World War I, World War II. Read some books. For God's sake, read some books. Look at some videos. Since 1913, when the Federal Reserve was created by these Illuminatis out of London, we have not been in control of our country, and we're being beguiled. In other words, it's like the Pinocchio going onto the island and all the carnival and the rides, and in the back of the island is a ship, and they're all being shuttled as slaves. They're beguiling you. The Pied Piper is playing his little flute, and everybody's dancing behind him on American Idol and football and being beguiled. It's a false path. There's a bad day coming, just like on Pinocchio's island. We're all dancing right along. All right. I think I'll end this and let you, you can go online, probably find common sense. But the elites, the hierarchy, the kings, the queens, the Illuminati, the satanic worshippers, the Zionist Jews, the banksters, the globalists. See, there's so many names, people get confused, but it's very simple. They just have a lot of organizations, like football. NFL has, what, 30, 40 teams, whatever. This Illuminati has hundreds of teams. Council of Foreign Relations, all kinds of foundations, IPACs, the political action committees. They pay off all the presidents. They overthrow countries and put in their puppet president over there in the Middle East and Egypt and all those countries. When they Google had their people in there, and they were riling up the citizens, and they were putting in a new leader. They didn't know they were putting in a new master. All I can say is there's two types of laws: God's laws and man's laws. And man's laws, right now, as we already know, they're promoting homosexuality, they're promoting even adultery. Watch 2.5 Men, and Charlie sleeps with a different girl on every show. And the people are being mind controlled. They're watching this. Sad to say. With that said, I'll just tell you one little funny story. So Charlie walks into the house on 2.5 Men, and he says, "I hate electric cars." And his brother Alan says, "Why do you hate electric cars?" He said, "Well, if that husband didn't step on a cat, I'd probably be dead right now." The innuendos, the programming, the mind control, it's so obvious. We better wake up. Well, I pray for this country. God bless y'all. I pray for the world. Pray to God helps us. And I've never been a crazy religious guy or anything, but the more I study this stuff by our founding fathers, it'll make a religious man out of you, or woman. God bless. Rick Miracle out.